the pledge. Karl Rove saying this.
These things have a way of playing out, but what it really says is the debates on August 23rd and September 27th are going to be very important to the Republican contest because they're going to be the way that people get to know these candidates, particularly if Donald Trump doesn't participate. It's a way for them to get to know the alternatives and to make judgments about who they like.
Matt Mowers, the president of Valcour and a former Republican congressional candidate in New Hampshire, is with us, along with Jonathan Cott, former senior advisor to Senator Joe Manchin. Matt, let's start with you because this debate next Wednesday, as we've been promoting, is going to be a first chance for these candidates to make a first impression. And what they'll be looking to do is make the public look at them, or at least try to, as a viable alternative to former President Trump. Who's got the best chance, in your estimation, of doing that?
Well, look, I'm going to be in that audience on Wednesday and look forward to seeing, hopefully, it looks like now 9 candidates potentially joining. Francis Suarez just says earlier this morning that he qualified. But look, if President Trump shows up, there's going to be a few matchups everyone's going to be looking towards. One is, of course, between Ron DeSantis and Donald Trump. The other is between Chris Christie and Donald Trump, two people who know each other very well, very personally acrimonious between the two. And then you're going to be looking to see who else is able to get their message out there. You have some unknown candidates, really. Doug Burgum, who's going to be on the debate stage, potentially Francis Suarez, who this is their first chance to talk to millions of Americans and millions of Republicans about who they are, why they're running, their vision. You know, in New Hampshire, where I'm from, we're fortunate and lucky to be able to get to know the candidates up close and personal, one-on-one. This is America's chance to do the same.
Yeah, I mean, it's advantageous financially to be able to do that in a state like either New Hampshire or Iowa. I want to jump to this poll here, Jonathan, and ask you about this because President Biden, running as an incumbent, suddenly finds himself in potentially some trouble here. Because take a look at the number of Republican candidates who are nipping at his heels. I mean, Donald Trump, of course, is in the lead, but DeSantis is right behind him. Vivek Ramaswamy is only 5 points behind him. Or 6 points behind him, I guess. Does that potentially spell trouble for Biden next year?
No, I don't think so. I think we're a divided country. I think no matter who the Democrat or Republican nominee is, you would have about 42% on each side saying they were going to vote for them no matter what. I think what will happen is you're going to have a very contentious primary play out. I think it's going to be just like 2016 all over again. Donald Trump will be the nominee. There'll be a bunch of people who stay on till the end. I think the problem with that is it's hard to tell one candidate, hey, you should drop out because this other candidate has a better shot of being the alternative to beating Donald Trump, even though you think you are. And once that ugly primary comes to an end and 4 or 5 trials for Donald Trump are underway, I think the contrast between Joe Biden and the Republican nominee is going to be stark and one that Democrats are happy to run on. I mean, we're celebrating 1 year of the IRA. We're going to be having tons of groundbreakings between now and Election Day on new projects, new jobs being started because of his legislation. So I think this is just, early out polling that usually is a snapshot of how people feel that day. But I wouldn't be worried about this come next November.
Although, depending on where the special counsel investigation goes, President Biden may have a few issues of his own to deal with. I want to ask about Vivek Ramaswamy again, Matt, because he had a moment at the Iowa State Fair that went viral when a person who described themselves as pansexual came up and asked him a question. And rather than getting into an argument, as we see so many times in the campaign trail, the two of them had a reasoned discussion, even shook hands at the end and parted ways quite amicably. Vivek was on our program, America Reports, yesterday. And I asked him about it. Here's what he said.
I believe we have perhaps our last best opportunity to reunite this nation. That's what I care about above all else. And I'm going to do it by reviving those ideals that set our country into motion 250 years ago. Our diversity is not our strength. Our strength, John, is what unites us across our diversity. E pluribus unum. From many, one. That's what I'm running to revive.
Some people say based on that, he's got a real chance for a breakout moment next Wednesday because that is a message that appeals not just to conservatives, but to independent voters as well.
Yeah, and look, Vivek Ramaswamy is a talented person. He happens to be a friend. And I'll tell you, he is working it on the ground as hard, if not harder, than almost any other candidate. And it's those moments, those interactions with voters, which is why it's way too early for people to talk about winnowing the field. Those are the campaign moments that are going to allow candidates to actually connect with voters one-on-one, get their stories across. And you see, actually, it's the candidates who are working the hardest on the ground often, whether it's Vivek Ramaswamy in Iowa, who's rising right now, Chris Christie in New Hampshire, who's now in second place in New Hampshire, Tim Scott, Nikki Haley, both rising a little bit in early states. Those are the candidates, and those are the places where they're actually gaining traction because of moments like that. By the way, Iowa and New Hampshire has a history of humbling frontrunners. It's happened many times before, and I think we may see it again here come January.
Hey, John, I want to ask you about this real quick, because yesterday we had a leaked debate memo from folks associated with the Ron DeSantis super PAC Never Back Down, suggesting that what DeSantis has to do in the debate is to support Trump and take a sledgehammer to Vivek Ramaswamy. Is this just the folks who are associated with that super PAC and the organization behind it playing a little CYA here to say to Ron DeSantis, if you fall flat, don't blame us, we told you what to do?
I think Ron DeSantis' worst day was the day he announced, and it's gotten worse every day after that for him. It just turns out people don't like Ron DeSantis, and $100 million super PAC leaking memos to say, hey, don't be yourself and be different, and attack a guy that you haven't even recognized as a real opponent, which, by the way, Ron DeSantis should be more focused on Vivek Ramaswamy and Chris Christie than Donald Trump, because he's a lot closer to them. Yeah. So I think this is a bad moment for Ron DeSantis, and it's only going to get worse.
All right, we'll see what happens on Wednesday. We got to run. Jonathan Cott, Matt Mowers, great to catch up with you. Thank you so much. Gender issues in schools sparking major debate in districts across the country. Listen here.